back in the day, when they had like the first big studios going on, they would set a row of tattoo artists up, and the first guys would do the black line work, and then the next guys would do red, and then the next guy would do green. And it's like it was an assembly line, and you went down the assembly line getting the stuff. And the reason they called it bucket tattooing is because they didn't have running water inside of the studios, so they actually had like 5-gallon buckets between each chair. And they use these 5-gallon buckets as ashtrays because everybody's smoking while they're doing it, and a lot of people drank back in the day when they were doing it. So you've got a line of sailors out the door that are all hitting whiskey bottles and stuff, and they get in the chair. Some of them get sick and throw up. Well, when they throw up in the buckets also. So those same buckets that they're using to rinse out their needles and everything, people are throwing up in it and using as ashtrays. So every time they would get super dirty, the apprentices would have to take that bucket and go and dump it outside and then rinse it out and fill it back up and bring it back in. But it's like they knew nothing whatsoever about sanitation.
God, I would not have wanted to have been an apprentice then.
Yeah, but you were hardcore then. Welcome to More Artistry on Earth. We are Cryptic Tattoo and Social Gallery here in Springfield, Missouri. And today with us, we have a very special guest, a veteran in the industry, a big name in Springfield for a long time. From Next Generation, owner of Next Generation Tattoo, Jon Wallace.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
Very good. Dude, this has been a long time coming. This has been really cool. Like my history with you was like 20 years ago before I had a friend that was just getting tattoos like crazy. And, you know, everyone at work at the time was like, dude, you need to quit. You're going crazy. You know, he had everything. And most of the work was done by you until he saw a piece of like from junior high. I had this little binder, but it's like this pencil drawing of like when the Matrix was cool. It was like this nerdy guy with like Uzis and a big coat.
I'm pretty sure I remember the piece.
And you added the background.
I'm pretty sure I have a picture of it.
Yeah. Well, I tried to look for it. It was before Facebook was a thing, so I think it was a MySpace thing.
Oh, MySpace.
So I couldn't find the photo. But I have the original drawing, and you added a background to it. And then you went in and you were like, "Can we add some color to it?" And you had like the big dark blue, like in the coat, and the red in the glasses. It was a cool piece, but he wanted it on his rib cage. And at the time, that was just like, first of all, somebody wanting my artwork on their body, something that I drew like in junior high. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I've never been in a tattoo studio at that point. So he's like, yeah, you should come with. So I brought my camera and I'm taking pictures. And it was just kind of a learning lesson of watching him. So you were the first like tattoo artist that I ever met. And, you know, they say, you know,
that was your first exposure to tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you never
forget your first.
You never forget your first.
Right.
Yeah. I remember my very first guitarist, and I was a huge fan of his ever since. My wife, maybe 2 or 3 months after that, you were her first tattoo artist. She's got the lotus on her hip. And it's like, so since then you were always on my radar, but it wasn't for another 20 years before it was never even on my radar to be a tattoo artist. I would do a lot of tattoos for a lot of people, some of which you would do, because I trusted. I was like, yeah, I've seen him do my work before, and he translates it, and he did the background and everything. You translated it the way it needed to be, and I was like, yeah, just go to him. But yeah, it would be 20 years ish later that I would be invited into it, and when he's like, yeah, I want to bring him in for an interview, you're like, yes, please. Like, so you've been kind of a big name, and not just like, well, I would say in this area, I mean, my scope of the industry is pretty slim, even still after 4 years. But like your name, Next Generation in Springfield, has been a very, very common name. Longest running tattoo shop.
Yeah, so we opened up in 94 as Next Generation, as Eyewitness, sorry. That was my old man's studio. So I was still in high school. And we opened in 94, actually, I think this month in 94. So this is like
same
right,
location?
Yeah, this is right at 31 years. We used to say that it was the same door since 94, but they redid the front of the building, so it's actually a brand new door. So it's technically the exact same area, but it is a new door.
Right. Yeah. You're like, could you leave the door? You remodel everything.
We actually made a joke about it or whatever, that we were going to keep it, but it just never happened.
Right.
And you you had 2 locations at one point?
I did have 2 locations for a little while. We had a second one up off of Sunshine and Grant. The problem with it was way more expensive. It was a lot bigger of a building. Like we kind of ran out of room at the Republic Road store. So we were trying to expand and we looked all over, and I actually wanted the building that's over here off of Campbell and Sunshine, where the Whole Hog is. And
Oh, yeah.
they are an older retired couple, and they did not want a tattoo studio in there at that time. They were like, oh, sorry, tattoos are bad. And we even went through and made them a really nice video showing them of, you know, the studio. And one of the main things we were trying to show them is like, look, even our bathroom is clean. Like we have 6 men that work in one building, and our toilet and floor is spotless. Like
Yeah.
this
It's
isn't
cleaner
this
than
isn't-
most
yeah.
gas station bathrooms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this isn't like the old school biker back kind of stuff, but they still were like, no, you can't have it. So the realtor actually was like, well, hey, I actually happen to own a building right around the corner on the other side of Bass Pro. And we thought, oh, that's awesome. Went and checked it out. Big building. We thought it was going to be really cool, but it actually is just right off the street enough to where nobody could see it. So we didn't really get a whole lot of walk-in traffic or anything. And we were actually not allowed to put up a sign because the Springfield had just outlawed roof signs, and the front of the building was cantered just a little bit, so they considered it a roof instead of a storefront. So we weren't allowed to put a thing.
that's-
So if I would have just put a sign up, they probably would have never said anything. But since I actually tried to do it the right way and get a permit for it,
Right. Yeah.
they said no. And they told me that it's like, well, what if I do it anyways? And they're like, well, we'll take it down. Like, we will take it down and we'll charge you for it.
We sure
So-
wanted they just unloading your
So
sign.
we went for several years without having a sign or anything, and we tried sending as many people over there. It just wasn't really working. And then at the Republic Road location, the building next door to us opened up. And it's like, you know what? If we could just have twice the room in this thing, we don't need 2 stores. So we closed that one down and opened up the second site over there, and it's been way better. Having everybody in one spot is so much better. We didn't have to fight over who got to be at this studio and that studio, and it was just way better off for everybody to just have one bigger one. And we keep joking that we're going to eventually take over the whole strip mall, but I think we've got enough room. We're
Yeah,
just
that
going
would
to
be
stick
pretty
where
big.
we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what,
Well, and it worked out that way. And I mean, that was a big decision. Like whenever I first met you, it was a pretty it's a very long space what you had
Yeah,
before.
it's really narrow and long and
Yeah.
deep.
And then you doubled up on the size on the other side. So I mean, that's an impressive setup. And how long? You said how long ago before did you expand on that? You said it was.
Time's flying and it's hard to keep track of it all now, but I would say it's right at about 10, 12 years ago
Okay.
that we got the second side.
Well, the reason we ask is, I ask is when we started here, it was 2 years ago, and we slowly, systematically started kind of uprooting the flooring and stuff because it was all carpet, and there's some of the old carpet that was still here, but we ended up like using extra space to just bring on more and more and more people as other locations kind of like imploded and needed people to, people needed a spot to go, they would come to us. And so we're like, I guess we're going to, renovate the other room. We're going to renovate the other room. We're going to pull up the lounge. We're going to do all this stuff. And so we found ourselves expanding pretty heavily, pretty quickly. Taking on an expansion, especially closing one location and bringing everything into one spot. That's a big undertaking. That's a big decision. It was just cool to walk in after all those years to see how much it's grown and how much it's expanded.
It definitely, I think it was a really good decision, and it helped us out a lot. Having the 2 buildings, it's like twice the overhead with not twice the business.
Right.
no, I totally get that. I totally get that.
We're curious. We're in
That's exactly how it is here. It's
Yeah.
Well, and I originally thought that, like having 2 locations, and that way you're pulling all of this business from over here on this side of town and this business from this side of town. But truthfully, it's the same clientele. If you live on the north side and you're our customer, you'll drive to the south side.
Yeah.
I
the
actually,
only way you're going to do that is to move to a whole nother town.
yeah. Well, and so I own some buildings right on Route 66 in Halltown.
Right.
Some old, basically antique buildings that were built in the 1800s and stuff, and I'm actually thinking about opening up some private studios out there,
Right.
and it's one of those where it's a little bit of a drive. It's 20 minutes, but at the same time, the way that everything's going now, there's a lot of people that they want private studios. They don't even want to go to the walk-in,
Right.
foot traffic stores. So it's it's a thought. I still don't know, because I'm to the point where I'm more kind of looking to slow down. I don't want to work as hard anymore. I went for many, many, many years where I was working 7 days a week. Now, being a grandpa and stuff, it's like, I could take a few days off a week and go play with the grandkids and go swimming. And, if I don't have an appointment, I don't show up at the shop anymore. Whereas it was almost before, like I lived there.
Right. No, I get that.
So let's go back even further to the very beginning. You said you have family in the industry. And
so my old man is a tattoo artist. That's who I learned from. My mom got with him when I was 12 years old. And we moved to Louisiana. And that's actually when my old man started working for a guy named Jack Armstrong. Some of the new people in the industry probably have no idea who he is, but he is basically one of the grandfathers of tattooing in the United States. Jack started tattooing in 1928, back when it was unheard of. It was mostly all just sailors, and they started getting tattoos when they were overseas and stuff, and then they started bringing the stuff here. So he started off at like 7 years old. He was a shoe shine boy on the pier in San Diego, and he somehow came across some tattoo equipment, and so he started doing tattoos right there on the boardwalk, like tattooing outside at his shoe shine stand.
Dang.
And then at like
totally gloveless.
no
Totally
gloves, no gloves. Everybody's smoking and drinking while they're doing it. And so he actually got picked up by the circus at 9 years old. He was the tattooed boy, and he was tattooing and traveling with the circus. And what's crazy is, when we moved to Louisiana, we actually lived with him in this big, huge warehouse building. And one of the parts of the warehouse, he had a whole room just stocked full of his memorabilia. So he actually had circus posters from like the 30s and stuff. Wow. of stuff that he'd done. I'm pretty sure that all of his stuff he ended up selling to the tattoo museum in Amsterdam. Right. So I think a lot of his stuff is still there and on display, but it used to just be in this room that was locked, that every once in a while he would let us go in there and he'd go through and show us different things. But like I said, he had all sorts of like circus posters, and then he actually started the first tattoo school. He actually had a tattoo school where they were setting up like curriculum and teaching people and all that kind of stuff way back in the day. He was also a midwife, so he delivered like umpteen hundred kids and had pictures of all these kids. And what's crazy though is it's like, if you see the pictures of him tattooing from that time, it was still all gloveless, and everybody is still smoking and everything while they're doing it. But when he was a midwife, he had gloves on when he was dealing with, birthing children. Right,
that's it. Wow.
I mean, we didn't take the Aztecs to realize that birth rates or, death rates in birth is always, it's even still to this day is sketchy. I mean, he was just being,
let me wear gloves to catch a kid, but I'm not going to wear gloves. It made a world
of difference, actually. Like, not to nerd out too much about it in the medical history, like they discovered a lot, like I think well over 50-60% of childbirths and stuff were eliminated when one guy was like, maybe we should wear gloves. Maybe your dirty hands are killing these kids. Well, and it just took one suggestion. They're like, well, I'll be damned. He was right.
Like,
but I digress.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and that's like a lot of the stuff, too. He had told me about bucket tattooing. And so back in the day, when they had like the first big studios going on, they would set a row of tattoo artists up. And the first guys would do the black line work. And then the next guys would do red, and then the next guy would do green. And it's like, it was an assembly line, and you went down the assembly line getting the stuff. And the reason they called it bucket tattooing is because they didn't have running water inside of the studios. So they actually had like 5-gallon buckets between each chair.
Oh, yeah.
And they used these 5-gallon buckets as ashtrays because everybody's smoking while they're doing it, and a lot of people drank back in the day when they were doing it. So you've got a line of sailors out the door that are all hitting whiskey bottles and stuff, and they get in the chair. Some of them get sick and throw up. Well, when they throw up in the buckets also. So those same buckets that they're using to rinse out their needles and everything, people are throwing up in it and using as ashtrays. So every time they would get super dirty, the apprentices would have to take that bucket and go and dump it outside and then rinse it out and fill it back up and bring it back in. But it's like they knew nothing whatsoever about sanitation.
God, I would not have wanted to have been an apprentice then.
Yeah, but you were hardcore then.
So, and it was crazy, but it's one of those things that like Jack's generation, when they were doing all of that stuff, that's actually when some of the medical practices started coming into tattooing. They started realizing like, oh, we're spreading stuff. Like this is bad. So that's why tattooing got made illegal in Oklahoma. That's why it went in New York. There was a lot of places that were actually legal for many, many years. And that was why. It's because it was dirty. Like they were spreading diseases. They were doing all sorts of gross stuff. So they actually had to start doing stuff about it and actually taking care of their customers because, you know, it's like once it's illegal, you can't do it anymore. It's all underground scratcher kind of people. So they actually started going to doctors and nurses and getting them to tell them about cross-contamination and, you know, proper sterilization techniques, because it's one of those, back in the day, that same needle and tube and machine and ink cap, you know, was used on 100 people. Like they would just use it one after another, after another, after another. And it was crazy. And everybody started, you know, spreading stuff. So it was illegal to tattoo in Oklahoma until
not too long
15
ago.
years ago.
Yeah,
So my
recent.
old man is actually one of the people that worked on getting it legal in Oklahoma. So we actually opened up a piercing studio in Tulsa before it was legal.
But the legality in Oklahoma, isn't it only on reservations though, right?
No, it's local. It's statewide now.
It is
now?
statewide.
Okay.
It is.
But
I know that some of the conventions that go on there, they're all on.
Well, and the reason they do that is because Oklahoma is very, very strict about all of their stuff.
Extremely.
Right.
And they don't do like a temporary license. So you have to pay for the whole year worth of a license to go there and do it even once.
Oh my gosh.
And Kansas is having kind of the same kind of thing right now. It's
Yeah.
they don't see other people's licensing other states. So you can't come in there as a Missouri licensed artist and just get a Kansas license. You actually have to go through all the Kansas stuff. Arkansas was really, really hard for years too.
Wow.
Arkansas, I think, has finally now calmed down a little bit, but 10 years ago in Arkansas, if you were a Missouri artist that had a license for 20 years, you still had to go and do an apprenticeship underneath someone
Right.
there. Like they
See,
didn't
that
transfer
just-
any of it.
That doesn't. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think states need to be a little more universal.
Well, and that
And
kind
it
of
would-
goes to show, like, you know, Anna, I think she had to get her piercing license under other states separately. Or I think Joe and Anna were wanting to bring Carnival of Ink to other states, and some of them, it's been jumping through hoops. It's been a circus just because certain states are like, they will not honor or they will not grandfather any experience or licensing.
Yeah, and that's it's one of those, it's a double-edged sword though. It's like we want all of the states to kind of be uniform, but at the same time, if they take the states that are the strictest and the most, you know, into it, that might screw it up for the rest of us across the board, because it's one of those, like Florida for a while. Florida, you had to have a registered nurse on your payroll as part of it. You had to have a registered nurse to have a tattoo license. And it made it really hard, and it was just extra money. Like, so you have to pay a nurse to just come and hang out at your studio and to be on call and just be an employee. And you have to pay them just so you can be open.
At the same time, though, like, do you feel that there are other states, like, you know, that because some states don't require any licensing at all.
No.
Some
California.
of them are by. I think one of our artists was from Colorado. It's only in Denver did they require a license. But
So for a long time, there was no licensing in California either. And so it's like we had some of the best artists in the world out there in like Apple Valley and stuff that couldn't order supplies from certain companies, because a lot of companies started cracking down and be like, okay, we will only sell to licensed tattoo artists. Well, what
Yeah.
about the people in California that can't get a license?
Right.
Or like Texas is still to the point where you don't actually get a license for each individual artist. You only get a license for the studio. So the studio's licensed, and you have
and
to
they're
work.
all covered under that umbrella.
Yeah,
the
you
show.
have to have a studio license, but then anyone can come in there as long as the studio puts you to work. And so
That
it
would be scary.
yeah, and because you but at the same time, it's one of those that a lot of these people see that you have a license on the wall and they think that you know, went through all this stuff. nowadays you do actually have to do certain amount of stuff to get your license. But not when I got my license. When I got my license, I had to pay them $35 and be over 18. That was the only requirements.
Wow.
Right. And we think that Missouri standards are really low and needs to be readdressed and looked at. But I mean, and that's part of the reason why, and we've talked about this before on the show, is like there's reasons why you have all these kids with their ego, or for a handful of reasons. Ego is just one of the more common reasons that I've seen, where they're just like, well, I'm just going to do this myself. And they have no problems. Like they can sit on a couch in their underwear, do a handful of tally marks, sitting, smoking weed for 300 hours, and they get their license so long as they got somebody to sign for it. And it's like, that's the reason why you get certain situations where there's an apprenticeship factory, it's like an assembly line.
Well, and there's a lot of people that they want to make money off of it. So it's like they'll train 50 different people and just take their money and send them out the door, and take their money and send them out the door.
And it's unfortunate because it's like, there's a lot of kids out there who are actually into it, and they have skill and they have talent. And it's like, if they understood some of the more basic stuff, even just running, how to operate your own business and how to run, they could be incredibly successful. It's like, not to say that, there's plenty of them that they figure it out pretty early, or they come into it with background knowledge, but it's kind of a gamble. And then you get these kids that are just completely unprepared.
Well, I think one of the big problems with a lot of the stuff nowadays too is everybody wants the end game. Nobody wants to put in the work to get to it. So it's one of those, back in the day, you definitely, if you just started tattooing 2 years ago, you can't open your own studio.
No.
You're not going to be your own boss. You work for somebody else, and you're supposed to be a master tattoo artist before you even think about opening up your own studio.
Right.
And then when you open up your own studio, you're supposed to do it somewhere else. You're not supposed to do it down the street.
Down
from
the
where you
street,
just
across
learned.
the street.
I definitely,
down the block.
I was definitely
things don't
introduced. I was introduced to all this with privilege. I recognize that. I think, thankfully, I'd like to think that I've got enough work experience and maturity and other aspects that I was able to come to the table with something, worthwhile. But like hearing the stories, I've always been well aware. Like I said, I knew even whenever I was brought in that like nobody, at least in my head, nobody was just asked to bring in. I know people that got into the industry, other artists that I pal around with in the comic scene, that now, own spots, man, they went through hell. They were hazed. They were broken down. And some of them weren't even like, they weren't punk kids. Like they were mature people, but they, was that process pretty common for you? And as a shop owner, do you kind of...
So it's one of those things that it was always that you had to earn it. And the hazing, and a lot of people nowadays are like, oh, well, it's everybody's just picking on the apprentices, and they're doing, part of it is just, you have to make sure that somebody has what it takes to make it. If me picking on you a couple times or whatever makes you break down and cry and you can't come to work and function, you're not going to make it in the industry. So part of it is, it's kind of like boot camp. When you go to boot camp, they're not mean to you and screaming and yelling at you just because it's fun. They're doing it to break you down so they can build you back up. And they're also making sure that you can work under pressure. So it's one of those things that we don't have to be perfect, but at the same time, there is that mentality that we have to be perfect. Like, this is permanent stuff on the skin forever. Mm-hmm. You have to have a certain ability to keep your shit together to be able to do it.
There's an emotional maturity.
What happens when your customer moves a tiny bit, and it's like, can you break down in the middle of the tattoo and be like, oh man, since this one line is off, now everything's fucked and I can't do it and I can't finish? No, you have to suck it up. You have to go ahead and fix it. You have to move on, and you have to make sure your client doesn't realize that you were flustered from it. You have to keep your cool. You have to be able to do that.
Right.
And I do think some of the hazing that's why, it's like you're trying to get people the ability to deal with stuff. You have to be able to put up, a lot of our customers are buttholes, and it's like, I can't let you know that I think you're annoying and you're a pain in my butt. I have to treat you like, no, we're best friends and I love you. And it's totally awesome that you annoy the crap out of me.
Right.
And so to me, a lot of the hazing and the stuff that you have to do, that's the reason it's done. And it is a lot more from the back in the old school. It doesn't happen as much anymore. Everybody is a lot more relaxed. My apprentices still, were like, oh, they're so mean to me. But like, you have no idea what it was like back in the day. It's like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Squirrely. Squirrely's out of Ohio. I think he's somewhere around Columbus. He's one of my old man's really good friends. He actually looks just like Tommy Chong. Only if you tell him he looks like Tommy Chong, he gets real upset because he has never smoked weed. He is totally against it. He's very, very straight-laced, but he looks like Tommy Chong.
Right.
But Squirrely had a farm, and Squirrely would make you go to his farm and clean horse pens and shovel cow poo, and like you had to bust your butt and prove to him,
discipline.
And he had his apprentices wash his cars. Like they went through a lot, and so it's like with some of the old school guys, like when I did it and everything, they new people think that was hard, and it's like that's nothing compared to some of the stuff these other people went through. Some of these people went through hell. Like
I never got hazed when I went through my apprenticeship. I mean, I think maybe just because it was so disconnected. I mean, it was weird how my apprenticeship went, and a lot of the hazing came in after the fact, after I was already licensed, and then watching others go through it. And of course, then you jump in on the fun and you do certain things. But
part of it also comes down to, this was a very male oriented industry for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
And that's kind of just the way the guys are. Like, if I'm your friend and I see you out in public, I'm gonna flip you off. I'm like, hey, that's my way of saying hi. It's not because I don't like you. It's the way we are. We call our friends names, and that's the way it goes. Now we have a lot more females in the business, and females don't work the same way we do. If we see one of our friends walking down the street and we come up and mess with them, that's just the way guys are. You do the same thing to a female, and that's sexual harassment. And
what'd that guy do that for?
We're very fortunate because David and I are the only guys, and we have a team of 8 artists. Yeah, we have 9 people, 8 artists, and we're the only 2 guys. And it wasn't like by design; we didn't plan it that way. It's just that every time we had an opening and we had a call to arms or somebody was in trouble, like it was always women that stepped up, and so we're like, right on. Like, so there was a little bit of
women tend to have less of a rap sheet.
Yeah. and it's easier for guys, like you said, to blend into their environment. They can fit in better, and girls are usually the ones that are ousted out or singled out in certain situations. And so when we were here, we're like, well, we're not manly men. We're not, I'm a big guy, but I'm not like a protector type, and it's like, so it's like, how do we justify this? And thankfully it all fell into place naturally. Haley, like she works with me in my space. Like our everyday hello is a middle finger. And it's, but you got to earn that. I don't think just anybody could do that with her though. So
and you have to get to know someone. You can't just do it on day one.
So we've been very fortunate that everybody in our camp is like, just, but they also know and trust that if we step over the line, that we trust that they're comfortable enough with telling us. But like, it's actually, we get some reviews sometimes. We're like, oh man, all girls, that's got to be so dramatic. Like, actually, no, it's actually probably the least dramatic. Drama. We are 8 for 8. Awesome. Like there's no drama. The discipline is all there. Everybody has life experiences coming from like, we've got, an HR like project manager from MSU is one of our artists now, and an actual like engineer, like an actual like robotics engineer. We have a dental assistant. We have everyone, all walks of life, and it's like everybody just come in with like life experience of like, yeah, I'm past that, and it's interesting because you see other shops where it's like a mix of all kinds of people, and on one hand it's like, man, that's so cool. That's so metal. And then it's like, man, that's like every day is like a lit dynamite. Somebody's going to pop off. So we're pretty fortunate. We're pretty lucky, I think, so far.
Well, I know when I got into it and everything, it's one of those where I didn't really get hazed that much either, but it was also, I'd already been around it and I already had the respect and I knew my place and I knew what to do and I knew what was expected of me. Mm-hmm. So if you don't step out of line, then you don't have to get smacked back into place.
Right. And I can say that too. I think because I was invited in, like I said, I was under the mentality that not just anybody was invited in. And I mean, with Clever Kaiju and all the other work and stuff, he's like, I think you'd be really good at this. I'm like, all right, well, it'd be stupid not to. But I also knew that, like, look, man, I'm 36 at the time. I was like, I am not interested in playing games. I'm not gonna, because I don't have to do this. I can go back and do because I own, 2 other businesses. I could just do my graphic design by myself, which I wasn't like super excited about, but I could have done it anyways. And so I had a way out if I needed it, which is a luxury that not everybody has. So when people jump in, I understand you have to put everything you have into it, and I have nothing but respect for those artists, for those people. I had the luxury of being able to just like, all right, let's try it. But I was not hazed. There was no hazing process. I think my mentor actually like admired me as a professional outside of tattooing, and so it was definitely flattering to be invited and brought in. I mean, it had its struggles, but I'll always be thankful for the opportunity. And I look at other people from a distance and seeing how even other people around me were being treated. I'm like, God, that's messed up. That is so hard. And it's like, I don't think I would have. I think I could have handled it. I just know I wouldn't have. Like, I'm just too old for that shit.
Well, I think, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. I got really lucky that my old man was a tattoo artist, but at the same time, working for your parents, there's a certain level that's expected out of you.
Sure.
That's not out of everybody else. Everybody else could get away with a lot more. And so especially being around it since I was 12, I started sweeping and mopping the floors and cleaning the toilets and that kind of stuff when I was 12 years old. And I was taught, like, this is the way that it's done. It has to be done right. There's no other way around it. You can't half-ass it. You can't do it any other way. This is how you do it. It's step by step. Do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And so I came into it with that mentality. A lot of these younger kids now, it's one of those, well, what if I try to do it this way? It might be better. And the old school and the new school don't mix
They
on
don't
that.
jive at
It's one
all.
of those that the old school is, this is how it's done, and that's the only option. If you don't want to do it that way, then hit the road. And I do think that the other side of it coming in has helped. It's definitely pushed the whole industry forward, because there's a lot of innovations and things that, like rotary tattoo machines, like straight up.
Right.
Those old school guys would tell you that that's a scratcher machine. You have a jailhouse tattoo machine. They're not supposed, they have to be coils. Like that's the only thing. If you're not using a coil, you're not a professional. Well, some of these other guys are like, well, we can take that and we can make it into some amazing stuff. It's like now you have these rotary pens that completely, blow away some of the other stuff. And so it does take some of other people getting into it to push it along, but at the same time, we are losing a little bit of that old school stuff. We're losing some of the respect for the business. We're losing a lot of the history. So it's like, it's awesome that you guys are doing this kind of stuff and putting it out there, because there's a lot of these young kids that have no idea who Jack
what a
Ruby
coil
is and who's Jack Armstrong or any of that. Like Judy Parker, like to me, everybody in the world in tattooing should know who Judy Parker is.
Absolutely.
Because every single studio in the world for a long time had Judy's artwork on the wall. A lot of that old school stuff is getting lost. And I really think that that's one of those things that needs to be brought back out. And I don't think that, to be a tattoo artist, you should have to take Tattooing History 101. But at the same time, if I started a tattoo school, that'd be one of the things I'd make them do.
Right.
It's like
absolutely. You should
learn
at least know where
it came from.
Where it came from, who paved the way for you to even at least be able to pick up a machine and do something. I mean, that's what I take from this industry, is that I was fortunate enough to get tattooed by a heavy hitter in this industry, and he's been around for 38, 40 years tattooing, and I value those things. I value the aspect that I was in a shop with Sailor Moses. I was, to see these things, to go to the nationals where he would be tattooing and see these big heavy hitters throwing down and understanding this is how the business works. It's not what it is today. And I have so much more respect for the business, knowing what I do know. And being able to bring that up and pass that bit off to anybody that I've taught. And anybody that I've taught, I've always said the same thing. Look, you need to go and research these people. Go and look up a Jack Armstrong, a Lyle
Right.
Tuttle,
Yeah.
a Henry Goldfield. Look these
Philadelphia
people.
Eddie.
Yeah, look these people up and see just where this came from, and allows you to even have this type of opportunity.
Well, and I think one of the big things that the younger generation doesn't realize is that it took people like Lyle Tuttle their entire career to figure out stuff that they're turning around and teaching their apprentices day one. So it's like you're starting off with 100 years worth of trial and error,
Right.
and you don't have to go through any of that.
Right.
We don't have to try a bunch of different types of needles and solder them in different ways,
Right.
and any of that. It's
I got a
already here.
prepackaged, vacuum sealed,
It's ready
freaking
to
sterilized
go.
cartridge. Here we go.
So to
Off you
me,
go.
for all the old school stuff, it's like you need to respect that these people did all of that work. So these new ones don't have to.
No, they don't earn the callus on their fingertips from the solder.
Right.
They don't, take the needles off of bars, file them down and then get out needle jigs and put all those, build all of that
I still
stuff.
have all of my needle making equipment. And one of the reasons I've kept all of this stuff is just part of it's for nostalgia, but it's also like if the zombie apocalypse happens,
Right. Yeah.
I can still tattoo. Like straight up, I could build a machine and make my own needles and run it off a car battery if I had to.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the newer school artists, if they can't get a hold of this equipment, if they can't get their supplier to send it to them, they would have no idea how to even do any of it.
Well, and that's the interesting. When we brought on Kayla, she was a newer tattoo artist. I think she's only been in it about as long as me, but a big hook for her whenever she sat in that chair on the couch and she was being grilled by all of us with questions, like David over here was just like fascinated by her because she was trained traditionally.
You don't hear of those type of apprenticeships to where you clean tubes.
She didn't have to. In fact,
build
they didn't.
needles, all of that stuff.
The location she was at wasn't even prepared to give her the means and the equipment. She did all that herself. She did.
Yeah.
She set up her own sterile corner, and then whenever she took on, she had an apprentice that she just started. She says, and she did it the exact same way. So she was teaching somebody else and how to solder needles, how to put needles together, and I mean she still has all that stuff over there, and she's every now and then she rocks a Cuban just to get some of those heavy lines in it, which is more of a hybrid machine. But it's just like as soon as you hear it, like it fires up. Even in this room with the door closed, I hear that thing going off, and I'm like,
See, and that's one of the crazy things too is just that when you go back a little ways, everybody ran coil machines.
Right.
So if you go into a tattoo studio, all you hear is
Right.
especially like a convention.
Yeah.
It's almost just like overwhelming
It's
the
just-
amount.
It was
And
like a
now it's
swarm
like-
of bees.
Now it's like we can have 100 artists all tattooing in the same
And all
room,
you
and
hear
you
is
can't
music.
hear. Yeah.
You don't hear one machine.
Right.
That's
It's like
weird.
I remember that's one of the things when I first started using rotary machines, the amount of people that came and be like, oh my goodness, like where's that sound? Like I thought the tattoos sounded like this, and it's like a lot of people missed it. But I don't miss it. Like I really enjoy having 6 artists going at my studio and not being able to hear a single tattoo machine.
yeah,
I don't
there's
miss
benefits.
that buzzing in my ear.
I thought
every
about,
night.
hooking one up just to go off every once in a while just to bring the nostalgia, but
Just loop it in the speakers.
You know what? That's funny because I've thought the same thing because I've got all the rigs to set
Yeah.
all that stuff up, and it's just like, wonder what would happen if I just came in and just set up my stuff one day and just set the machine down or hold it and just hit that foot pedal and just see how many people come walking back here going, what is that?
It already happens, like I said, and then but it's like, that's so cool.
That
Oh, I
Dan
know, I know.
Kuban is way quieter.
No, I know. That's what I mean.
Let
That
me-
alone gets attention. Yours is going to be like a jackhammer,
Dude,
and then
they're
that's going to
loud.
be. People are going to definitely they're like, ugh, that's not. That's. But it's when they see the clip cord and you having to like sling it over or fight with it or roll it. You're like, no,
That's what
I'm
made
out.
me want to switch to wireless. Was I got tired of the replacing clip cords because you run over it with your chair and then it gets tangled in the thing and then you ruin the clip cord buying a new one. I was replacing a clip cord probably once every 6 months.
oh yeah, and well, so when I came into it, instead of using like the alligator clip cords, my old man was like, "Oh, we're gonna use these, RCA cords and the
RCAs.
3.5 millimeter ones or whatever." And I didn't realize until later on. It's like those things wear out really, really freaking
Yeah,
quick. Like
RCAs are
so,
horrible
I
with
was
those either.
I was going through like the phono jacks, especially those suckers. I mean, it's maybe 2 months out of each cord before they just wouldn't
Right.
stay
And
in
you'd
anymore.
learn to go and just buy the connector and
Just
start
you
wiring
start
them
stripping 'em
yourself.
out, yeah.
Just so you didn't have to buy a whole cord. You just buy the connector and you'd go in there and cut the piece off and
Oh yeah,
you'd wire it yourself.
and the amount of time and money I spent in Radio Shack, and now it's like I don't even think there is a Radio Shack. I don't think there's any companies that sell that stuff.
Right.
No.
No, they're not designed for wear and tear. They never were. So
No, because you could like even then when RCA's became a thing, you could go in, you could take your coil machine, and you could hook up a RCA adapter
Oh yeah, I've
to
all
it
of
and make your normal alligator clip cord. Take that away and make your coil an RCA.
all of my old coils. So I still have a very large collection of tattoo machines. I don't think I've ever sold any tattoo machine that I've ever had. So I've
I'd
got
like to have a collection.
tons and tons and tons of them, and every single one of them that I have is switched over to RCA.
Wow.
I guess
my two
there's a
coils
couple.
aren't.
So I've got a coil machine that Jack Armstrong built for me for my birthday,
Damn.
and then I've got one of the original time machines that Danny Fowler built.
Oh, I've got one too.
I've got
dude.
one that he built in his garage before he actually started doing
yeah,
big
that was my
time.
very first fucking machine. Was a time machine. It's black. That was my liner. All signed by Danny Fowler. And
Yeah, see, I've got 4 other of the time machines. They were my daily drivers for a long time.
yeah, they were. That thing was a workhorse.
So when I had talked to Danny and I sent him a picture of the one, his old school one, he wanted it back. And he actually asked me, and it's like, no,
Nah,
I really,
man.
really want to keep it.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't.
So
have
it's
gotten
one
rid
of
it.
those, like later on, I did think that, maybe I should have sold it back to him, because if it was mine and I had built it, I would
You'd
really
want it back,
appreciate it.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, this is like one of the prizes of my collection. You know? It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's something that future generations will get to see.
Yeah, I don't think he
You
would have
know?
blamed you either, though.
I
There's a
w- I
reason
w-
he wanted it back.
I wouldn't have gotten rid. I wouldn't get rid of it either.
Yeah.
I'd be that person. I'd be like, no, I'm gonna hang on to this as much as you want it. I can't do that. Couldn't part with it.
So when you finished your apprenticeship, like where did you bounce around to other shops?
Oh no,
were you
I've pretty much. I have only worked in basically other than conventions and a couple of buildings. I had that second studio off of Grant, but 99% of the time I've been right there
Same
on
studio.
Republic Road.
Right
And
there.
your dad was the one that taught you, right?
Yeah, so I learned
Yeah.
from him. So like I said, he was working for Jack Armstrong when my parents first got together, and so that was 6th grade, I think, is when. And so I started going to the studios and hanging out on the weekends. And Jack was very old school, and it was like, okay, you totally, we'll let you do this, but you have to do it the right way. So it's like one of the first things that he taught me was how to mop the floor. And it's like I had to go through and mop the floor correctly. Like, this is the exact way it's done. It's not just to get the floor wet. It's to actually get the dirt up. He taught me an exact way to clean the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. And then I started hanging out. So the first studio that my old man worked at in Louisiana down there for Jack was called Billy Goat Hill. And we were actually between 3 strip clubs. Leesville, Louisiana is pretty much just Fort Polk. There's Fort Polk, and then there's some people who work at all the stuff for Fort Polk, and that's like the whole community. So there's only one paved road, at least when we lived there, one paved road that goes from the highway to the military base, and then everything else is dirt roads. And so it
that
was...
makes complete sense. 3 strip clubs and a tattoo shop just outside the military
Yeah,
base.
and it was one of those where they didn't even open till 5-6 o'clock in the evening, and it was all drunk Army guys. There was always strippers coming up and putting their boobs on the glass. So at 12 years old, I thought it was the most amazing place in the entire world.
Or you get desensitized by 15. You're like, yeah,
Right.
Sam.
So it was pretty awesome. And then my old man got a job. I mean, by the way, Cliff James, I don't know if I'd mentioned that yet. That's my old man's name, is Cliff James. So he got a job with a guy named Bill Hannon in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. And so we moved from Louisiana to Florida, and Bill was a lot more of instead of he's still old school because he's older and everything, but he was a lot more of the new kind of tattooing. It was a lot more very super clean thing. He was in a lot of magazines and stuff like that. He was real big into the image. He did not let kids in the studio. So the whole time we lived there, I maybe went into the studio once or twice. It was very yes sir, no sir, keep your hands to yourself, don't touch nothing. So I did go for a couple years where I didn't actually get to be around tattooing. And then Cliff, my stepdad, he got a job with Winona Martin, and she owned Skin Deep in San Diego and Waikiki. So we actually moved here to open up the studio. She was opening up in Hollister. And so we moved here, and after the summer of helping her get the studio opened.
Right quick, if I can interject, did she work with Scott Sterling?
I don't know. That I don't know for sure.
Because I think Scotty's over in Hawaii in that area, and knowing Skin Deep, I may have my connections wrong.
It's been so long, and I really don't. And we were only associated with her for like basically one summer. We moved here to open up. It was Aloha Noni Lani's is what the name of the studio was there in Hollister. It was an old Casey's building that they gutted and turned into a studio. And we came here to do that. And after the summer, basically my old man realized he did not like her. That he thought that it was a way to get into the upper echelon of tattooing. Right. She owned one of the most well-known, expensive, very high-end kind of studios in the country. But then after he got around her, he just decided that she was not someone he wanted to work for. So he actually got a $5,000 loan from his mom to open up Eyewitness here in Springfield. And so we opened up in 94. It was just him in one little front room of the store. And then I got to actually start being around it a lot more again. Once I started hanging out, it's like I started making needles, and I got too good at making needles too early, so he made me make all of his needles for him. And so it's like I made thousands and thousands of needles before I ever actually started a real apprenticeship. Like, that's my thing. I would come up to the shop, I would answer the phone, clean the bathroom, mop and sweep, and start making needles. And I would make needles all day long. And then I basically started hardcore, like, this is what I want to do, when I was about 15. And I actually started learning how to pierce. I started learning how to pierce from old videos and books, and my old man was helping me because there were no piercing studios in Springfield at that point. So he helped me get all this stuff together, and I thought when I turned 16, I was going to be a body piercer, and I was going to be the coolest kid in school. But then he was like, well, sorry, you can't actually start doing it until you're 18. So we trained. So I helped train Ken and Roberta that had Sundown Tattoo or whatever. I actually started teaching them and helping them learn how to tattoo or pierce when I was 15, 16 years old, before I actually even really did it or anything. And so they started piercing. And then right after I turned 18, I started piercing full time. We opened up a studio in Tulsa, first we opened up a studio in Joplin, and I went down there basically right after graduating high school and started piercing full time in Joplin. And then Ken and Roberta that had Sundown here in Springfield, they kind of did my old man dirty. And so when they got fired, I came back up here and started piercing here. And I pierced for almost a year. Right when I turned 19, I started tattooing full time. And then it was like, once I started tattooing, I didn't really want to do double duty. It was too much of a pain in the butt.
Very common.
And it's one of those where nobody wants to wait to get a piercing. Everybody wants to come in and get it right now. So that's when I trained Billy. And Billy has been basically my head piercer since then, since 98.
Yeah.
And pretty much just tattooed my butt off for years and years. My parents split up, and basically when they split up in 2004, that's when I bought the studio and changed the name to Next Generation because my old man still owned Eyewitness. He had the one in Joplin and the one in Tulsa, and So I didn't buy the name. I just bought the contents of the building and started Next Generation. And I thought, Next Generation's a good name since I am the next generation taking over.
Right.
And it's pretty much just been kicking butt since then. Like we've went from only having 2 people, 1 tattoo artist and 1 piercer, to now we have 6 full-time tattoo artists,
Yeah.
5 full-time piercers.
Golly.
It stays super freaking busy most of the time. Like I don't know how we cornered the piercing market so well in this town. I don't know if it's because
'Cause you
we
have
were
5
just like the
piercers.
first. But
And we've been looking for one for 2
Right,
years.
looking for one for 2
but
years.
it's one of those, we only have 5 piercers because we need them. We have
Yeah.
to we have to keep up with the flow.
Right.
I know a lot of other piercers that have second jobs. Like there's a lot
Right.
of other piercers that cannot keep up, their bills only piercing. And I'm really glad that we have to have that much. But it's crazy that there's not really any other place. Even Kaleidoscope, I think, only has 4.
Right. Well, when we took over this area, like we have space over here that we would love to have a piercer in, and we're looking forward to the opportunity. But like, in our experience, we also know that good piercers are very well taken care of in the shops that they work for. Like in the ones that show up every day, whether they have appointments or set up or, but like in those shops, they have that traffic and they have that, and the shop owners take really good care of their people. It's like which we're prepared to do, but it's like, like do you guys have a piercer? You have a piercer. It's like there's only like a handful of very like
Reputable
good,
ones.
reputable. Everybody else is like, yeah, well, I'll just show up whenever you call me in. Like that's not how
Nah.
we can't work that way. And it's so yeah. I mean, you may have 5 piercers, which sounds like a lot, but like like you said, there's good reason for it, and the fact that you can maintain that is impressive. It's very impressive.
Well, and I think one of the things also that we've realized over the years is that you can't work people into the grave. It's
right.
like, so I went for many, many years working from open to close every day, 7 days a week. And it definitely burns you out. Whereas now our piercers, each one of them only works like 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And they make really good money
Right.
for those 4 days that they work. And then they actually have time for a family life.
And
all
that's
that kind of stuff.
and that's why we set
That's
up even with
ideal.
our artists.
Exactly.
That's why we not doing percentage. We know we miss out on a lot of money sometimes, but we also know that there's a security in knowing like, look, this is what we expect from you, and then that in turn you run your life your way, and we're proud of that. We're still kind of making adjustments here and there as we go, but like that's incredibly important, because it's amazing how much more people will actually give if you give them the room to do so. Like, and it means a lot more to us when people give extra just out of volition, not out of expectation. And it's one of those things like, each individual person runs their own ship, under our umbrella, so to speak, and there's a lot of pride in it. So we're willing to take the time to find the right people with the right mentality.
Well, and I mean, even if we get more time off, you still work very intimately with people in
Right.
this industry.
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure you have the right crew. And that's why we've just been really blessed and lucky. It's like, I've got awesome people. And so I want to take very good care of them because I
Right.
want to keep them around. I see a lot of other studios in this town that have come and went that have went through tons and tons and tons of people. Not mentioning any names, but I know one guy here in town who, it seems like every year his entire studio comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes.
Yep,
And
there's a few.
You have to, when my customers come back, they want to see the same faces.
Exactly.
They,
I was
they,
about to
yeah.
say
they,
that.
they
Yeah,
get
wanna see the
happy
same faces.
with, this certain person. And so it's like Anna Bridges. It's one of those, people love her.
Right.
And so back in the day, nobody cared. They would just come in and whoever was there, they get a piercing from. We got all sorts of people now that it's just, well, you know what? I like Anna. So tell
Fair.
me what time she's there and I'm going to come and see her. And each of the piercers, does the same
Have their
thing. Like
own.
my son, Corey, he's been piercing for us since he graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
I started him pretty young also. He actually was apprenticed and everything while he was still in high school. So as soon as he graduated, he started being able to do it. And, so he's been doing it here in town right at, I guess, 8-9 years. He's got a hell of a following. Like
Yeah.
there are lots and lots of people that even though
You
Billy
know,
has been
and
doing it
that's-
for longer, they're going to come in and they're going to ask for him because he's so good.
Right.
with them,
He's
you know,
established that. And I mean, like
well,
you
that
said,
and being young and going through school and having those ties.
right. Yeah.
I mean, that's how it is. I think it's going to be with my daughter. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's the reins I'm passing off to, and by the time she hits 18, she's going to be able to hit the ground running, and
Yeah.
she's already going to have that built. And it's incredible to watch something like that happen, because you're just like, man, if I could have had that when I was your age, that would have been amazing. But it's not like that. So you build that future for your kids so they can succeed even tenfold of what you did.
Right. You mentioned before, and I mean, just to give a little shout out to Anna, she actually had a very interesting story with you when she was on the podcast. She shared her story of starting off as a tattoo artist. Like, she tried tattooing for a while.
She came to me. Basically, she was doing an apprenticeship up in St. Louis, and where she was at up there, they basically were just using him as free slave labor. And it was not going well, and she was not really being taught. All of the apprentices were basically teaching each other. You know,
Right.
It's like they were all trying to help each other out, but no one was really trying to show them the correct way.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that she was working very hard, and she was really diligent about trying, but not really getting anywhere, just spinning her heels.
Right.
And I've known Joe for many years. We've been friends for a while, and you know, basically we just got to talking about it. It's like, you know, if she wants to come down here, we'll finish off her apprenticeship and we'll actually show her the correct way and everything. Well, when she came down, you know, she is a very hard worker and she is very dead set on it, and she was trying really, really hard, but she wasn't really doing that well. And it's one of those, no matter how hard she tried, it was still kind of a little mediocre, and she didn't want to be mediocre.
Right.
And so it's like, well, I'll tell you what, how about we learn how to pierce, and so you can make good money while we're finishing up your tattooing. And then after she started piercing, she just loved it. And it was like,
Right.
this
Yeah, I
is
don't
my
wanna do
niche.
that
This
no
is
more.
what I want to do.
That's the hinge, man. That's exactly like that. To be somebody who wants to do well, who aspires for, you know, greatness, like a personal level, to struggle sucks.
But just understand,
especially when
but
you don't
just
struggle at most
understanding that
things.
her calling wasn't tattooing.
And that's the thing, is like, at what point do you have? And sometimes it's not up to, if it's up to you, if it's up to me, like where I was in my last job, I knew it wasn't right, but I was making myself miserable because it's like, this is all I know, or this is the only option I have. And it's, you know, at what point does somebody else have to step in and be like, hey, it's okay, let's try this? And she discovered she has so much love and admiration and respect for that whole story, and so do we. Like, it was a really cool story, and obviously she's doing very well. So much so that a lot of people, like, she's already a figure of everything that she does. Like, she's the face, she's a personality. So, you know, next gen, you know, people think of, you know, anybody who's met her like in the shop. And I don't know if this is something you share, but it seems like she almost has that. She's the face and figure of the place whenever people walk in and see her there.
She definitely tries, but it's one of those, it all depends on who it is. So it's like I said,
Right. If they're there for their,
she's got a really, really good following of people that love her to death. But at the same time, it's like my head piercer, the manager, Billy, there's lots of people that think that Billy owns the place.
Yeah. No, I've heard. That's what I mean. People are confused between Billy or Anna. And
yeah, and it's because they're there, and they it's because they try so hard.
They're
and that's,
there, yeah.
And that's one of those things where I appreciate it so much, because they do treat it like it's their own thing.
Yeah.
And they put forth as much effort as if they owned it without owning it.
Right.
Which you don't get out of everybody
That's
else.
probably a huge relief on you.
Oh yeah, like
you get to just
like the
kinda-
only reason I get to go out and do the things that I want to do now is because I have such an awesome crew that takes good care of my stuff. If I'm not there, like right now, they're all there working their butts off. I don't have to worry if the place is taken care of. They are taking care of the place. I know that I don't have to worry about it. If Anna's in the store, she's going to make sure everything's taken care of. If Billy's in the store, each one of my guys, I can leave them in charge and they can take care of it.
Right.
You know, every once in a while you run into a problem and there might be a bickering between people, but even most of the time when there's a problem, I hear about it later because they've already got it resolved.
Yeah. Well, and it's just impressive, especially since, you know, this little bit of investment that you put in. You brought her in, you gave her options, you let her explore, and then, you know, here just earlier this year she wins the Guinness World Book, Guinness World Records for most piercings in 1
And I'll
hour.
tell you, that's another one of those things that really made me proud is the fact that it's like, if you watched all of them work together, almost everybody that did all the stuff was all from my store.
Right.
They worked as a team. Like,
They did, absolutely.
They worked as a well-oiled machine. Like, they kicked butt. They made me very, very
They
proud
ran
that
out of
day.
jewelry before time ran out.
Yeah.
So they ran out of supply. They're like, all right, well, I guess we'll just twiddle our thumbs. And so it was a great experience. Myself and another guy, actually, a buddy of mine, we were running around with cameras filming the whole thing. And it was just, you're right. She even had time to like comment on people's hair and their nails. She was able to do a little dance, do a little, make a few jokes. She just, I don't know. She made it look easy. And it's just really impressive for somebody who, with her story. And no, it was really impressive. And we're really proud of you guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it blew me away, and I was definitely a very proud daddy that day.
So where can everybody find you? What's your social media? What are you doing?
So I mean, we have a Facebook page. We really, truthfully, don't do a whole lot of social media stuff. We keep saying that we are going to get off our butts and do more of it. But really,
you guys have
we're
all that word of mouth.
we're so busy that a lot of the times we don't have time to play around on it.
That's a good problem to have.
So my Instagram is Jon Wallace 608. The Facebook is Next Generation Tattoo. Each person has their own individual Facebooks, but we pretty much we try to do everything through the business. That's another kind of one of the things that shifted a lot in tattooing and stuff is almost everybody now works off of their cell phone.
Right.
We don't. Like, straight up, if you want an appointment with Frank, call the studio or come into the studio. I personally don't give out my personal cell phone number to any of my customers.
Yeah.
If you want to get a hold of me, you got to get a hold of me on Facebook or email or call the studio. We still have a landline. Like,
right. So do we. Well, I mean, it's not plugged in, but yeah, we have our own.
That's the way that we do it. As far as we do have a Next Generation Instagram also, but it was being ran by Candy, who she actually ended up going. She's, I think, in Tennessee. She just opened up her own studio. She's doing really, really well also, but she was the one that was running the Instagram, so we actually have to get back a hold of that one and do it ourselves. So, I mean, really the best way to get a hold of us is either Facebook or come into the studio.
Right on. Well, we really appreciate you guys. I know so many times people come in and be like, yeah, you guys were recommended, like if you're full up or whatever, or even actually one of our artists, it was, like, yeah, I didn't know where to go, and I went to them, and they're like, you should totally hit up Cryptic. You guys have always had our back, and we've always...
We try to pass the word for the good people, because there are some people in town that aren't. And it's like, the people that don't have respect for the industry or don't keep their shit together, we try to... we don't badmouth anyone. Like, if you
don't have to either.
Yeah,
like,
if you come in, we're not going to tell you, oh, that guy sucks or don't go there. But we will tell you the people that we respect and that we think you should go see.
Yeah, and we appreciate it. We always try to return the favor. Like there's always, especially with piercing, we're just like, I'm surprised you found us. Like compared to that on the Google search. But no, we have a lot of love and respect for all of you. Your team
we definitely appreciate it.
We definitely aspire for, 30 years. That's amazing.
I know. We'll be there one day.
Gosh,
we got a long ways to go. We got another 28 years.
Yeah. We'll get there.
But hopefully I'm very retired and behind the scenes by then. I'm gonna still keep the studio, but I would really like in like 10 years to not have to go into work anymore.
No, I'm right there with you. 10 years from now, I'd like to just literally like to be taking a back seat and let the shop drive itself. And,
Well, so I also bought a bar and grill in Marionville. Right here.
Oh,
so we're doing a lot of pushing towards that. It's one of those that I still love tattooing and I'm still going to do it here and there, but I'm going to let a lot of these other people take the reins and do a lot more of the work, and I'll sit on the sidelines and kind of watch. So that is one thing. If you're one of the old people that I've had here in Springfield for a long time that has unfinished stuff, you should hit me up soon, because within about 5 years, you're going to have a really hard time finding it.
That's it. Right, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. 5 years, you better get it while you can.
That's my 5-year plan, is to sit on the couch.
Margaritaville.
Right. No, I get you.
Alrighty.
I get you.
Thank you again, John. It's been
Hey,
awesome.
thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Absolutely. Thanks, John.
Yeah. So, we see that a lot of people watch the series, and it's awesome. The numbers are growing. It's a lot, but actually we did the math, and it turns out only like 40% of you are actually subscribed, which is a number that's actually
Needs to grow.
It's
That's
actually
not too bad.
It's better than a lot of people,
Yeah.
but we could do better. So, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. And you get to look at our glorious face
YouTube,
every single time
Spotify.
we post something. We have an awesome new guest. Learn a thing or two.
Yeah.
But anyways, till next time. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate you. Peace.